Hello there, my name's Joe and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to take another look at a couple of different Loras. What I thought we'd do is I will demo my workflow. We'll take a look at a couple of different load Lora nodes that are available. We'll then quickly demo via the Civitai pages the two Loras that we're going to look at, which is going to be crystals and glass sculptures, and then we'll finish off with generating first of all an image without any Lora. We'll then activate the first Lora, generate another image, and then we'll activate the second Lora and see what we get in the mix. And if anybody finds this useful, I will put a copy of my workflow that you see here on my DropBox page and put a link in my comments. So let's start off with having a quick look at this workflow. So starting with my workflow, everything that you can see here in yellow is the standard default text to image workflow. So you'll get that by clicking on load default. Only difference here is I've colored this in yellow. Everything else is the same. However, as we are looking at Loras today, I have added a Lora node, and we'll come back onto that in a moment. But just sticking with the basic icons at the moment. So we've got our load checkpoint, and today I'm using Dreamshaper XL as our model. We then come across to our prompts. We've got our positive prompt, and I will let me just bring that up so you can see that. You can pause the video if you want to read that. So we're going to produce a sort of arty kind of little image there. Let's just move that out of the way. I tend not to use negative prompts unless I need to, so that will remain blank. Come across, connect up to the KSampler. We're creating a 1024 by 768 image. I'm using fixed seed with a feed reference of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've just gone for 42 steps and 6.5. And those were just figures I came up from playing with this yesterday and using the DPM++ SDE, DPM++ 2M SDE sampler with the Keras scheduler. And for this demo, we'll be using a denoise of 1. KSampler then goes into the VA decode to decode it from developer speak back into pixels, and then we have a save image for our final image. So that's the basic setup. I've also got down here just my little toy here that makes the sound when the image is ready, so I can wander off and do other stuff. And that's about it. So let's take a look now at load Lora nodes. So for this demo, I'm going to use a Lora stack loader _pop. And this is quite a useful little Lora loader node because it allows us to, if we want to, load up to 3 Loras. It is really quite a nice utility. It has an on-off switch for each of the Loras, which is really helpful. You have a drop down where you can select your Loras. You've got you can adjust the strength, the model strength, and also clip strength, and likewise you can do the same for the remaining 2. Now I've already filled in the details here of the Loras that we're going to be using today and the strengths that I'm going to run them at. But if we look at the switch 3, which is the third Lora, which I'm not going to use, you can see it's switched off. You can set it to none, which is quite nice because you can't do that on most other load Loras, especially not the standard ones that come with ComfyUI. And you've got your model strength and your clip strength. And again, some of the other nodes don't have the clip strength if that's something that you want to use. So this is what we're going to use. If you like this and you want to install it, then all you really need to do is note the word pop, come across to your Comfy manager as always, install custom nodes, Give that a moment, and then just type pop up here, press return, and you can see here that you've got comfy_pop. Now that's what I've installed to allow me to use this. So once you've installed that, do a restart and you're ready to go. So that's that. So the alternative to using a stacker like this, or you may just want to stick with the basic load Lora nodes that come with ComfyUI. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Let's look at the two offerings that we get in the standard pack. So the most commonly used really is the load Lora. And if I just drop that on top, and again, you've got the drop down, which will allow you to select your Loras, and you can set your model strength and your clip strength. The important thing with Loras is that the Lora sits between the checkpoint and your prompts. So if we just have a quick look at the wiring for this, so from your checkpoint outputs, your model will output into your input on whichever Lora model that whichever load Lora node that you're going to use. So output checkpoint to input model there. Same with the clip. So your output clip from your checkpoint will go to your input clip on your load Lora, and then from your outputs for the load Lora, your model will come across to your model on your KSampler, and your clip will go into both your positive and your negative. I hope that makes sense. And it doesn't matter which Lora, load Lora that you use, it's going to be the same. So let's just get rid of this one for a moment, and let me just quickly show you another alternative that exists in ComfyUI. And this is the Lora loader model only. Now the difference with this is, as it says, it is model only, so it doesn't have the clip inputs. So if you wanted to use this, all you would do to hook it up, you would go from your checkpoint model output, would come and go to your model input, and your model output from your load Lora would come across to model, and that's all you would do. Your clips would remain as they were at default, and they would come straight into your prompts. So that's what that does. So this Lora loader model only doesn't have a strength clip, so you've only got the strength model there, but it is available to use if you desire. To finish off talking about Lora nodes, let's have a quick look at the Lora info node. Now I've done a video on this previously. I find it a very useful piece of kit, and basically what it does is it provides, you select the Lora that you're interested in. These have to be Loras that you've pre-installed, and it will give you it will confirm the base model that you need to be using, but more importantly, it gives you the trigger words. Now I tend to use these in pairs, sometimes in threes, because I tend to use Loras in 2s and 3s, but 1 is more than sufficient. Very useful piece of kit. It saves you having to hunt around trying to find the trigger words. Now you can do that. Another way of doing that, I'll just mention it before I forget it, is I've got my workflow manager up here. Again, another utility I couldn't be without in ComfyUI. And on here, you've got this little blue button here, models, and that will take me to either my my models, my checkpoints, if I want to look up what are the best steps CFG recommended for my models, etc. Or I come across here, and these are all the Loras that I got installed, and I can quickly go to the Civitai page to check what trigger words I need. So that's an alternative way of finding your trigger words. However, this utility is very useful. The only thing I would say about to be aware of though is if you, while you're using this, if you add a new Lora to your ComfyUI, it won't show on here until you've restarted ComfyUI, whereas your other things like your load Loras, etc., will see it once you've done a refresh. So a refresh is sufficient for most things, but not for Lora info. So if you've added a new Lora, you need to do a restart. I'm guessing that's because this particular node picks up the data on boot up, not on the fly. So just be aware of that. So we can see here that I've got the two Loras that we're going to use, which I think I mentioned previously is crystals and glass sculptures actually. And at the very top of the text box, we can see the trigger words, and it confirms the base model that this Lora was built for. So very useful. So let's go back now and take a look at the Civitai pages for the Loras before we give them a go. So the first Lora we're going to be using is the crystals Lora. It works with both 1.5 and SDXL, so should work with our Dreamshaper XL model that we're using. When you come onto this page, the important things to note really are the base model. What will this Lora work with? And we can see here SDXL 1.0, and what are the trigger words, if any. So some Loras don't require trigger words, but most do. But this is where you'll come to find that word. A bit further down here, we see who the author is for this Lora, and it's RalFinger. So, and if we then scroll down a little further, we should then start seeing some images that have been generated using this Lora. So that's the first one, Lora crystals. Our second Lora is glass sculptures. So same again. And in fact, it's in some ways it's quite similar to the previous Lora. Hopefully it'll give us a bit of an interesting mix. So so let's have a look at if we come over here to the little table on the right hand side, we can see that the base model again is SDXL, so should work fine with our model. And we come down and look for trigger words, and we've got true. We can use either translucent or transparent trigger words. And again, it's always worthwhile scrolling down and having a look at some of the sort of examples that can be achieved using this Lora. Okay, so let's go back to the workflow now and generate an image without any Loras enabled to begin with. So back to my workflow. I've deleted off the two demo I cannot say that word. I have deleted the two load Lora nodes that I was showing you for the demo. We don't need those, so they're gone. I'll just have a quick look at check that my Loras are switched off. 1 off, 2 off, 3 off, that's fine. And I'll just double check that I haven't got any trigger words on my prompt. I keep making mistakes with trigger words and Loras, so I'm just being a little bit cautious. And I think everything else looks fine to go. So let's try and generate an image only with no Loras. So Q prompt. Okay, so we've got our base image. Let's just quickly open that up as a web page. So that's our start point. So let's now go back to the workflow and switch on the first Lora. So to switch on our first Lora, we'll come back to the Lora stack loader _pop. And we'll go to switch 1 here and we switch it on. Again, I think it's a very useful thing to have on off switches on these Loras. Some of them can bleed into an image, even if you've got it deactivated, I found occasionally. So we've switched it on. The first one that we're going to look at is the crystals Lora. I've set the strength, model strength to 1 and the clip strength to 1. And I'll just double check that everything else is off, which I've already checked that already, but I'm getting a bit paranoid now because I do keep messing this up. And so we now do need to look at what is the trigger word for crystals. So I'm now going to come down to my Lora info, and we have this word spelt crystals with a Z on the end. Let's just copy that. And what I tend to do, again, to make my life easier and to help me remember, I always put trigger words on a fresh line, hopefully so it stands out a bit more for me. So we've added the trigger word for crystals, we've switched it on with a strength of 1. Let's go ahead now and press Q prompt. Okay, so now we have our second rendition of the image. Let's just take a quick open that up, and yeah, there we go. So clearly we've got the crystals as stated, so we know the Lora is working. Let's just quickly go back to the load Lora. So I used a strength, model strength and clip strength of 1. Now, changing this, moving it either higher or lower, is obviously going to generate a different image. So it's a good way of creating variety. Just try them and see what the results are, whether or not they're interesting or not. Something I didn't know until I've only just realized this the other day is that Lora strengths can go higher than 1. I didn't know that. I thought it always had to be 1 or below. But I've pushed Loras up to about 3 and got some really sometimes interesting results, other times quite poor results. But certainly 1 isn't the limit. I didn't know that, so I'm just putting that out there. So yeah, so if I change the strengths on this, again, we're going to get a different version image. So let's move on now to the second Lora, which we're going to add on top of this Lora to finish off with and see what we get. So I'm coming to switch 2 again, switch it on, which is nice and handy. We've now enabled the glass Lora. I've set that strength to 3 for model strength and clip strength. And again, I need to add the trigger word for this Lora to my prompt. So I'm going to come across here to my very useful Lora info node. And we are looking now at glass. And I can see that I got 2 words I can use. I can use translucent or transparent. Let's go for translucent. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to come down to my bottom line. I'm going to add a comma so as not to cause confusion. So we've now got our second Lora ready. I'll just double check that everything is looking tickety-boo. So that looks fine. Yeah, so strength of 3 on both model and clip. And I've added 2 trigger words. So I think we're ready to go one final time. So Cue prompt. And there we go. There's our final image. Let's just open this up, which is our mixture of our original text and the two Loras. So going back to our workflow. Yeah, so what I did yesterday when I was playing with this, I changed some of the strengths around, and I generated a few test images. So what I'll do at the end of this video, and we're just about finished now, I'll just show you a couple of the images I generated using these two Loras, but at some differing strengths, just giving an idea of sort of stuff that I was generating. And I think that's just about it. So as I say, I'll put the workflow and a few links to the Loras and things in my comments. And yep, that's about it. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for your time. It is appreciated. And I'll say goodbye.